Welcome to Truth No Chaser. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Jay.
And I'm Frank. And this is the podcast for Black people, by Black people, about everything Black.
This is our flagship program. This is a shot of truth, stirred with bold opinions, reversing the miseducation of the Black community as it relates to culture, health, and politics.
And tonight we have our guest joining us, Millicent Phinizy. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Y'all want to give her a welcome,
Absolutely.
y'all?
How you doing?
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for
My
joining
pleasure.
us.
Happy to be here.
We're excited.
Can't wait to talk to you about this very interesting topic that we have today.
Yes, before we get into that topic, let's get into this bio.
Yeah.
Millicent Phinizy, EDS, is a school psychologist and educational advocate at the Cora Lee Institute in Smyrna. She has over 10 years of experience working in the public school system, plus 4 years in the private sector. Millicent has a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Spelman College, Master of Arts and Education Specialist degrees in school psychology from Georgia State University, and is currently enrolled in the clinical psychology doctoral degree program at Mercer University. Her training and research are focused on the impacts of complex trauma on child and adolescent development and ways to increase mental health services within the school and juvenile justice systems. Millicent is a wife and a mother of 2 children, ages 8 and 10, who engages in various forms of visual and performing arts in her free time. How do you find free time? But anyways, welcome to the show again, Millicent.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I was reading the bio, I was like, okay, so the shirt is super dope.
Right. Loading.
Dr. Phinizy,
Please
loading.
wait.
Please wait, yes.
Working on it.
That is dope. That is dope. Yes, ma'am.
So, how, of course,
First question.
Yes, the obvious question of it all: what started you in this track, and what was your passion or your drive to go into this particular field?
Right. So I'm gonna get deep on y'all for a second. So
Go ahead.
Please do.
when I was a child, I had, some challenges, difficult things that I was going through, particular rough moments, and I was looking for support. And I had role models. I had, adoptive mothers and people in my life in that way. But, in the Black community, we don't really do mental health.
Hello, somebody.
Like that, right? So, I decided as I grew up that I wanted to be the person that I was looking for when I was a child,
Okay.
So that's essentially, that's the short version.
Right.
Of how
That's
I got
a good
there.
version.
Yeah.
We all need that.
Yeah. Now, as far as ADHD, right? So I've been working with children for, it seems like forever. It seems like that was, straight out of college, that was my goal, always to work with kids. Even before then, my first job is summer youth program, right?
Right.
So the thing about, we're here to talk about the myths and misconceptions of ADHD. And now before...
In the Black community.
Right. Now before I even heard of ADHD, this is back in the days, we had the non-clinical terms. Like,
right.
we used to just call the kid hyper.
Yeah.
Right.
Or just
The kid was
BAD.
Yeah.
Hyperactive.
Right.
Right. So
bad.
before ADHD did, now ADD was the first disorder, attention deficit disorder, before they added the hyperactive. And we used to just say the kid was bad. It's the Black community, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We used to just say the kid was bad. I love him to death. I have 2 cousins, Larry and Christopher. Man, I couldn't stand these kids. Once you couldn't play with them because they didn't have a filter. They didn't know how to stop.
Right. Yeah.
And the immediate, what was it? Ritalin back in the days, right? Was the immediate go-to for, a kid that was hyper.
Right.
And stuff. Can you please explain to me at least the difference between ADD and ADHD?
Yeah.
Explain to everybody because we don't even know.
Yeah. So really what happened is the manual that psychologists use for diagnostic purposes, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM, in one of the older iterations of that book, the term was ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder. In the newer version, the DSM-5, which is the current iteration, it changed to ADHD to include that additional component. So now it's all considered ADHD, but then there are subtypes underneath that. So you have primarily inattentive type, you have the hyperactive type, and then you have the combined type.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So right now we're all kind of, ADHD just kind of become an umbrella term, and then you have the subdomains underneath.
Okay.
Right.
So could you give us like one or two differences of those three sub?
Definitely. So the attention one is characterized by like symptoms that have to do with somebody having a short attention span, maybe being easily distracted, having difficulties like filtering out, things like that. When you start to get into the impulsivity part, the blurting out, the I can't sit still, the I'm always fidgeting and doing all that kind of stuff, then you're adding that hyperactive component.
Gotcha.
And then the combined type is people who show symptoms of both. Right? And so technically for a diagnosis, you have to have 6 symptoms of inattention or 6 symptoms of hyperactivity. And then for the combined type, it would be a combination of the two.
So, go ahead.
Okay.
So what's the optimum age at which you start measuring this? Because some might say, so our trouble with, my son was always active and busy. So it's like, at what point do we say, okay, is he just a boy? Because now I visit his 3rd or 4th grade classroom, and all the boys are like, oh my God, so
Bouncing off the wall. Right.
right.
Yeah.
So what are the ages where you start to look for this?
So we don't really like to diagnose it until they're probably in about kindergarten.
Okay.
But you can definitely see symptoms earlier than that. And what you're looking for is behaviors that are above and beyond what other kids their age are doing. So it's typical for a preschooler to be up and running around and moving and all that kind of stuff. Like, we expect that, right?
Right.
And then at a certain extent, too, our society that we're living in is putting undue expectations on kids. Like, we're expecting them to do things that their bodies are not really supposed to do. Like, they're not supposed to be able to sit still for a long time or pay attention to. Like, we are asking them to do things that they're not supposed to be able to do. So really, it becomes disordered. Yeah. Anything becomes disordered when it becomes above the norm, right? So when we're talking about like ADHD, I have some ADHD tendencies.
Right.
Like, y'all saw, like, y'all was sending me emails, and I'm like half responding.
You're right. It ain't got tendencies.
Like, everybody has some of all of these things, right? But it becomes disordered, like I said, when it's above and beyond. When it starts to interfere with your daily functioning, then it's disordered.
So, well, like you said, there has to be 6 symptoms in order for a person to be clinically diagnosed with the ADHD.
Right.
Are you saying the number 6?
6.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay, got you.
Six symptoms, like so.
And they have to persist over at least a 6-month period.
Right.
They have to be present, and they have to be present in multiple settings.
Yeah.
So it can't be, I just can't function, I can't focus in school. But you also can't focus at home, you can't focus at church, you can't focus in the community. Like, you just can't focus, period.
Yeah. And like you said, we all have, so I don't want you guys to diagnose yourself with ADHD. Because a lot of symptoms. Let me tell you something. A lot of people do that. Like people that have like self-proclaimed like OCD and stuff like just because like they're like neat freaks and stuff like that. There's a ton of things that come along with being OCD. Thing. So anyway, but as far as this
That's
disorder,
a good point though, Frank.
Yeah, because like you said, fidgety. Tapping your hands, stuff like that, and always like can't stay seated, like you said. So that there lies the difference between the children and adults, right? Like, because the child is not expected to sit still for a long periods of time. However, at the seminar, the adult is supposed to be able to sit.
Be able to do that.
Yeah, but and like you said, we can't focus. Like, so I'm not gonna call myself. Like I say, I got ADHD, but I can't focus. Like, if I was to take class in school now, like I wouldn't be able to focus because I'm thinking about like I got this bill to pay, I got that.
Right.
That's probably why I shouldn't do school so late. You understand what I'm saying? Stay in school, guys. Because but anyway, go ahead.
So, what's your thoughts? And explain to them properly, because I want to ask a question, but I'm not going to What are your thoughts based on what you said? So anything becomes disorderly. You know, they're not supposed to. The structure of school where we're putting undue expectations on children at a certain age. What are your thoughts on Montessori schools? And before you answer that, give the proper explanation, or best you can, of what a Montessori school is.
Mm-hmm. So Montessori schools, from my understanding, have a non-traditional setup. Mm-hmm. So it's not the traditional sit behind a desk, teacher lectures, and the kid, learns that way. Montessori schools are more about exploration, in which the kid is given a little bit more freedom to gravitate towards things of their interest. And then the teacher may say, oh, I see you have picked up these blocks. Let me show you some things you can do with blocks. So Montessori is a little bit more about the child's, it's a child-centered. So it's a little bit more about their interest and their things that they gravitate towards. So that's how it's a little different.
So is that something you would say, maybe or maybe not, this may be an out-of-bounds question, is helpful to ADHD students?
No.
No? Okay.
Not at all. And the reason why I say that is because people who have ADHD, all right, so let me give y'all a little bio lesson.
Yeah, let's go.
So ADHD is a deficit that has to do with executive functioning. Executive functioning is housed in the front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. Our brains develop from back to front. Right. So all of our basic drives and needs and things like that are controlled by parts of our brain that are closer to our spinal cord in the back. Right. So that's why you're not able to drive until you're older. You can't vote until you're older because your prefrontal cortex is not even fully developed until you're 25.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So women,
it develops faster in women than it does men.
It does. Absolutely. You've been Googling, right?
Throw it in there. We learn a little slower than women. We know. We all know.
My chiropractor told me this shit.
That's why women are mature at an early age.
Yeah, exactly.
Proceed, please.
So these executive functions, right? These are things like our ability to attend, our ability to regulate our emotions, our ability to regulate our behavior, how we shift, our ability to shift our focus, to start paying attention, to stop paying attention, our ability to remember things, how forgetful we are. So all of that is how. So I like to explain it like this. Like if you think of your brain like an orchestra, right? Each of the different processes or functions that I just talked about is like a different instrument. Your executive functions would be the conductor, right? So it tells you when to pay attention and when not to pay attention. It tells you when to speak up and when to shut up. It tells you when to get up and when to sit down and all that kind of thing, right? So people who have ADHD have their conductor is asleep, essentially, right? So back to your original question about kids in Montessori, if a child has ADHD, they don't have the ability to regulate themselves. So you put them in an unstructured environment and it's not going to go well.
Right.
So you need to provide the structure that they cannot provide for themselves.
Right.
Gotcha.
So I have a question. So this being Truth No Chaser, you know, about black people and all that good stuff, we wanted to bring the myths about black children and ADHD.
Yeah.
So in your expertise or your opinion, are we diagnosed less than other races?
I would say yes.
And why is that?
Because
Go ahead. Go on in.
break.
In.
This is Truth No Chaser. Give it to us raw.
Hey, listen.
Please.
I have a mild, not a lot, but I have a mild bit of insight on this, but please go in on that.
it's because of the overcriminalization of black people in general, right?
Bam.
So black people are often dehumanized, right? We are compared to, like our president was compared to an ape, you know, things like that. So that is stereotypical. That is from our history. That has existed from our history. That is why our children that are younger are perceived by police as older and stopped and frisked, and we have all of this police brutality. But I'm not going to get on that topic because that's another episode.
Right.
I'll come back when I talk about that.
Right.
But
bring your husband back for that one.
Oh Lord, he would love to talk about that. But because of that misperception that's based in, you know, historical prejudices and things like that, our children are not viewed as having a disorder. They're viewed as just being bad, right? Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, we don't do mental health in the black community like that, right? So we don't even look upon our children that way.
Right.
We say, go down somewhere, right? You know what I mean? And so we're not taking our kids to get diagnoses. We're not taking them to get therapy. We're not taking them to get medication and things like that because that's not how we were taught. That's not how we were raised, right? So we don't know that these resources are available. Like y'all, like I know white parents that go and pay for evaluations,
right,
from doctors to diagnose their children with ADHD, anxiety, whatever,
right,
so that they can come back to the school and get accommodations.
I know that.
And we're not doing that.
Let me tell you something.
Tiffany B. Glenn.
Shit, let me tell you something. It's this one here. Tiffany B. Glenn.
Glenn.
Oh, so no. Let's see. Because I still work for the board of ed, right? So there's a ton of parents that really don't understand the resources that's given to them. I work special education, and the funding, speech therapy, OT. Excuse me. There's tons of resources that's available to them at their hands, at their palms, but they don't take advantage of them. They either don't know, and then one thing that you said, because I have a friend, man, the belt is the cure in our neighborhood for all hyper activity. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
but don't you think that, like, if the child,
as she was saying,
don't you think that your child would stop if they could? You think your child wants to get beat all the time? Like, at some point, we have to look at ourselves like, all right.
But you got to know.
Are we doing the right thing? Yeah.
Are we doing the right thing?
You have to know how to know to look. Yeah.
Right.
So I had mentioned in the beginning this Ritalin, right, was a very popular medicine that was administered to kids that had hyperactive. Now, moving forward with the technology that we have and it's advanced and stuff like that, is there now maybe a new medicine that's out that can, what are some medicines?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's lots of new medicines, and I'll tell you, Ritalin is still being used. It's a brand name
called different,
right? It's Ritalin is a brand name, so the chemical, drug name for it is methylphenidate, and so methylphenidate comes in different brands. Right, Concerta, things like that. Adderall. Well, Adderall is not methylphenidate, but there are new medications. There's all these classes of stimulant medications, and then there are some non-stimulant medications that are still evidence-based, but maybe not as heavily supported because they are not as strong or efficacious as some of the stimulant medications are.
Our audience, what about herbal? I know a couple of people are going to be asking about that.
Herbal? The natural stuff, organic.
What about the organic?
For the adults.
For the adults
with ADHD.
What about the earth?
Go on, be honest. Now, wait.
So we're not talking about minerals and vitamins. We're talking about herbs and plants and things that grow in the ground. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
So I mean,
see, mommy.
There are medicinal benefits. We know. There's there are medicinal benefits to some of these herbal things. Yes. But for this particular
stop right there.
Diagnosis,
that's all we needed to hear.
No.
Okay. Moving on.
Right. That's the audience is good. What you said, but what you said, but ain't gonna say nothing.
This is not
told you. Right. I told you. That's why I smoke every day. I smoke till I get high.
Now listen, if you have anxiety.
Right.
Yes.
I have
anxiety. Okay, so
if you have ADHD, no.
I was diagnosed with anxiety.
Let me tell you that these typical niggas right here because they got everything, like everything. All of a sudden they got everything.
I be nervous all the time.
Wait, which one did you say? Anxiety.
What you said? I got that shit. I got that shit too.
Y'all see me sweating before the show.
So what's your bitch? I got that shit.
I talk fast. I got anxiety, y'all.
That's so funny.
I do have an important question though, Miss.
But hold on, before you say that,
go ahead.
Just on those lines though, because there's probably going to be people that ask about what about the vitamins and what about if I have my child eat less sugar and do all that kind of stuff. Like, no.
Well, that's it. Well, see, because I had a child psychologist. Well, not a child psychologist. I had a psychologist offer that a different diet might help my son
Yeah, I think they were trying to make you feel better because you didn't want to do medication.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for that psychologist,
right.
but there's not a lot of research to back those things.
Right.
So there's a chance it could have an effect. I'm not taking that away from anybody. I did try like some of the herbal drops and stuff like that with my child when he was in preschool. My son has ADHD. And I think it was more of a placebo effect for the both of us because he started saying, I need my focus medicine. I need my calming medicine. That's what he called it.
I'm sorry, doctor. For those that may not know what placebo means, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Break it down.
Right.
For those
I was like,
of us, for those of us,
Are we talking about the woman?
mainly me,
Please,
Is that
please
something
tell me
placenta,
placebo.
yeah, right,
When I
placebo.
start
Okay,
placenta.
Biology class is loading.
placebo.
Tell me, I'm sorry. Tell me if I throw some terms out
Please
there.
wait, loading.
Please break it down.
Right.
Placebo meaning that kind of when it's kind of in your head. I hate to say that as a
No.
it's so cringy
Oh, wow, I
to say
wasn't
for like a
expecting that.
mental health person to say it's in your head. But when there are people who will kind of talk themselves out of things. If you kind of believe that something works, then sometimes it works for you because it will act on. Now,
So it's almost like the
it'll act on your brain.
Munchausen syndrome, like talking yourself into being sick, like talking yourself out of that'll work. Like
Y'all breaking out all the big words.
nah,
Millicent.
chill.
He's
Don't
smart. He's smart. That boy's smart, y'all. That boy's
Chill.
smart.
Don't worry. Don't.
Find out these boys been
That
reading.
boy's smart, y'all.
Find out y'all been reading. Oh, you been reading?
Intelligence.
You reading.
Loading.
You're
Intelligence
reading,
loading.
Frank.
Please wait. Intelligence loading. Over here.
Go ahead and break it down, Frank. Go ahead and break it down, Frank.
No. But nah, I get that, man. Because we know a ton of people that do that. Like, hey. I know a lot of
names.
ways. I know a lot, and that is, and the marijuana is one of them, right? They believe it's gonna cure all, it's gonna heal all, and they become, and everybody becomes Dr. Sebi all of a sudden, and they,
Work for people on
There's a difference between when you get high and you just staring at the refrigerator. That's not
Right.
focusing.
right.
That's not.
felt like
I
it.
mean, damn, it was in the refrigerator. I seen through the refrigerator.
Yeah.
But what were you?
Long-
Then you don't even know what you were there for, right?
I don't know.
Longest I ever focused on anything.
I forgot what I was looking for.
Were you focused? Though?
All I know is
don't even know if you're focused.
All I know is it calmed my ADHD down. So.
It calmed my anxiety down. I wasn't nervous no more.
So
Now it might
them
calm the
letters.
hyperactive component. It'll slow that
That's
down.
all people need to know right there.
Let
That's
me
it.
rewind it a little bit.
If I've said something
it
that
back.
help you,
Yeah.
So let me rewind it a little bit, right? Move your mic down there.
yeah.
So when you said you talked about how folks are like, and I really want you to go in on this as best as you are able. You talked about how folks are like fighting for their children. Like sometimes, to my understanding, with my wife being a teacher, some parents, they may get their children evaluated through the school, and the school psychologist says no, they don't have whatever it is you're seeking for them to have, and then they'll play an independent psychologist to diagnose them so that they can get these labels.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in our community, we have always said,
Fight
don't be
against
labeling they just trying to label him. So what I want you to talk is a little bit about the myths and the truths of labeling. And then that's part one. And then part two, flip to the good side of labeling, or the advantages of being labeled, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot.
We got time.
So
Because that's the biggest thing. They're just trying to label them, and then
Right.
children don't get help because
and see, so that's a healthy fear for Black people,
Right.
because there are so many factors that are working against us. Just being the fact that we are Black,
Right.
So being Black is already the biggest label we will ever carry around, and that in and of itself comes with oppressions and prejudices and discriminations alone. So then when you add a disability on top of that, now I am twice labeled. I am twice disabled. I am twice oppressed. And so it's a legitimate concern that parents have about their children being labeled, because our kids aren't fairly viewed when they have diagnoses, then it just becomes something else. Oh, there's another something with this kid I got to deal with. I know you working with kids in special education, kids
middle school.
Sometimes when they have IEPs, just when the the general education teacher gets that student, it's like, oh, I got a kid that has a problem, and then they feel like, oh, I got to deal with. And so they already start off looking at that child as less than, needing extra help, behavior problem, going to be a concern. So I get where parents are coming from with that. Now, here's where we are in today's society, though, is that there are a lot of benefits that do come from having some diagnoses and having supportive parents to be present and push for accommodations and services and supports within the classroom that their child needs because of their diagnoses. So I've shared with you all that my son has ADHD. I was incessant upon making sure that he got accommodations in class. Right. So he has what's called a 504 plan. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504,
talk about it,
requires that any agency that receives federal funds has to provide accommodations to their setting to enable people with disabilities to work or live or learn.
Wow, I didn't. Okay, that's where that comes from when it applies for children. I didn't. Okay, wow.
So in that 504 plan, it allows for setting accommodations, so changes to the environment to allow for the environment to suit the needs of my child. So in his case, most often 504 is used for like if a child has diabetes or they have seizure disorders or they have medical conditions, but now more commonly it's used for kids who have ADHD. And so some of these accommodations might be things like getting extra time to take tests. Maybe you're allowed to take a test in a smaller classroom or small group so that there's less distractions. Maybe you're allowed to sit in the front of the classroom or in the back of the classroom if it's more conducive for that particular student. But there are changes that are made to allow the child to best perform in that environment. And so what our Caucasian friends have learned is how to milk this system and manipulate it for what it's worth and get everything out of it that they can. And so we are kind of falling behind on that because we're still cringing or we're still pushing back on that because of the systems of oppression.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, it's not as easy to just say, all right, go ahead and give my child this diagnosis, because we know with that there's going to come some other stuff that our Caucasian friends don't have to worry about.
Right.
When I tell you, you sort of like speaking to my soul, right? Because in addition of me working with the board, I also work group homes. All right. And I know firsthand what you're referring to as far as taking advantage, even if that means, with our Caucasian counterparts, taking advantage, even if that means possibly losing your child. Because, you're training in juvenile justice system, you understand exactly what I mean, And if I can be transparent for a second, I'm currently I'm not having a midlife crisis or nothing like that, but I'm currently at like a standstill because the group home that I currently work at is predominantly white, and I have a tough time connecting with them because my priority ain't them. You understand? So, I have a My Brother's Keeper program that I run in my school as well, and I am elated when I speak to those young brothers because although I wasn't the proverbial troubled kid that came from a troubled background and stuff like that, however, I came from the same neighborhood they did. So my messages speak for them, to them. Yeah. Just like this podcast is a podcast for Black people, by Black people, about everything Black. And the person that my daughter is going to bring home is the person that I want to reach out to. Yeah. Right? So in mentioning all these like misdiagnosed, like when we were younger, we were in school, middle school, I don't know, elementary school, like you said, it wasn't as clear. At least today, they're kind of giving a little bit of their stages before you can before a kid can be sent to special ed.
Yeah, right.
His resource first, then there's, general ed where they
They gotta
kind of
add
have classes,
interventions
right?
and do things like that, yeah.
Interactive. But then, then when I guess, sorry to say, but special ed is kind of like when all else fails, when you've tried everything. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Back in the days, unbeknownst to us, that's the school funding.
Right.
They used to be like, listen, we get how much? The principal used to be like, we get how much for the special education program?
Right.
You understand? Hey,
right.
Oh, that kid bad? Put him in. You understand what I'm saying?
Put him in there, yeah.
And I had a few friends that we had to, it was, I could understand it being embarrassing for them to go back home,
right,
when they just came out of the same school as us, but, they only had 8 kids in this class, and you understand what I'm saying?
And special ed then was a whole separate thing.
Right.
A whole other hallway most of the time,
Right.
Yeah.
So that stigma, Tiffany, if you kind of want to, can you put Tiffany's mic on? Because she had a question. It was similar to Jay's.
She has another question because Jay kind of asked her question.
Right. So go ahead, Tiffany, if you want to ask the other question.
So one of my questions is, what would you suggest to a parent who's kind of at a crossroads between having their child evaluated for an IEP, and would you suggest that they seek out an IEP as well as a 504? Like how much support will they need, or do you think they need, in order to get their kid the support that they need moving forward through education? And also, what is an IEP?
That's a great question. So let's break that down real quick. So an IEP is an acronym for Individualized Education Plan. And that is a support that is offered through the special education department. Every school district within the entire country has a special education program. And so the difference between an IEP and a 504 is a couple of things. But the main difference, aside from one is offered through special education, for IEP, and the 504 is still just general, regular education, right? So with that, the 504 plan offers accommodations or setting environment changes. IEPs offer that plus modifications to the curriculum.
Okay.
So we can change the way that the information is taught to the student. We can change what is taught to the student. Okay. So that is all done through an IEP through special education. So back to Tiffany's question. If a parent is at the point of considering an evaluation for their child, by the way, all school districts, people are going to hate me for say this, and I'm sorry, my other school psych friends, but I got to tell the truth.
You're gonna love
If a parent has a concern and they want their child evaluated, they can go to the school and say just that. I have X, Y, and Z concern about my child's ability to learn, and I want them evaluated. Now, the school is going to say, well, we need to try some interventions first. For some kids, that's good. Yeah, let's do some interventions. Let's see if that works before we have to go the step of an IEP. But for some parents, you might be like, no, we've done things. It's too late. I don't want to waste any more time. I want an evaluation. So, boom, just wanted to say that. It's called a direct parent referral, by the way. Use that language and you will get attention.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Direct parent referral. I would like to request a direct parent referral for evaluation.
I have a personal story with that even.
And who do they, before you get them started, who do they ask for that?
They can ask the school counselor. They can ask anybody on the administrative team.
Okay.
Yeah. So even a personal story with that, like, in high school around 11th grade year, like going all through school, math and sciences were always my thing. Like they would always put me in the highest classes, but I would struggle. The first part, like the first week of school, I was right there. And as the year progressed, I would slowly lag behind. My mother, before going into law, she was a chemist. So she would help me with my math and science. She's great at math and science. My father, very good. My biological father, very good at math. They would go over tests with me, go over quizzes before we're taking them. And I would understand the information, go to class. I would struggle with it all week or 2 weeks prior to the test, seek my parents' help. They would go over it with me, my mother especially, and I would understand the material and go perform poorly on the test or the quiz. And so she said, look, something's not right here. I know you understand it.
Right.
I don't understand what's wrong. So she requested and she fought. They did an evaluation. This is my second time getting an evaluation. First time I got an evaluation was second grade because they thought something was wrong. I went to such a hood name. Shout out Chester, Pennsylvania. Chester Upland Schools. I went to such a hood school because I was not misbehaved. They thought something was wrong with me.
Because you weren't acting out.
They literally sent me to evaluation for being too quiet.
Oh.
Because that's how off the hook the kids were. But so they saw the second.
But what is that, right?
Right.
Black people expected to be
right.
act a fool.
Like that's literally what happened. They literally like something is wrong with him. He is not fucking wild. Excuse me.
That's crazy.
So, so they sent me for this one that was teacher driven. This one was parent oriented, and so they ended up fast forward. They had me do all these evaluations, all these tests, and everything. They ended up coming out with an I.E.P. in 11th grade, where I couldn't take any more than 2 tests in the school day, no more than 3 quizzes in the school day, no more than a certain amount per week. I learned how to take, and the biggest thing for me was that I was taught how to take notes differently.
Yeah.
I learned how to take notes a certain way, and that changed my academic life.
Game for you.
Yeah.
I struggled all through high school. I graduated, y'all so funny. Y'all always think I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I melt on the inside every time we be talking. Y'all be like, Jay, you so
Smartest
smart.
person we know.
I graduated high school with like a 2.1, 2.2 GPA.
Damn.
Because I struggled grasping the information.
Boy, stupid.
I went to college and I graduated magna cum laude. Because of
you
what
figured out how to work the system.
because I understood, because my mom fought for me. It was like, no, something's not right, evaluate, and they fought her.
Yeah,
they act like she was bugging them to get them together to make them do their job. And
there's a message right
and
there.
It ended up
don't stop fighting for your kids.
Amen.
It ended up changing my academic career all throughout college.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's what's up there.
Parents have to be the biggest advocate.
Back to what Tiffany was saying, though, you can't have an IEP and a 504 at the same time.
Okay.
IEPs supersede 504s, essentially. So if you go through the evaluation process and they determine that you don't meet the eligibility criteria for an IEP, then you can, at that point, say, if there is some diagnosis that is, relevant to the situation, for example, ADHD, then you can then ask for a 504 instead. But do know that if you get an evaluation to the school, they can't make diagnoses. School psychologists are not licensed clinicians, so we don't have licensure to make diagnosis. So you can take the school's evaluation, though, to your pediatrician and say, hey, they did all the testing for you. Can you confer, a diagnosis? Can you give this diagnosis based on this information? So that's the free way to get an evaluation, right? Because if you go through a private company, it's going to cost you some money.
Yeah.
But if you have like a health savings account or flexible spending account, many offices, like my office where I work at the Coralie Institute, we will accept payment in that form to help.
Say that one more time, please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So at the Coralie, I'm a school psychologist at the Coralie Institute in Smyrna, and we do private evaluations for all things, and we also offer therapy for children through adults.
That's amazing.
Beginning with little babies, 3, 4, actually 18 months, but all the way through the lifespan. So
before, wait, does anybody have any questions before I say? Go ahead.
So, what would you tell the parents who have decided to just pray about it or pray it away, their label? Because in the Black community, we all say, like, go to church and pray about it, go to the altar and give to God, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be a better school year.
Right,
this year.
it's okay. It's just had a bad year, bad semester. Like,
That's
what kind of advice would you give?
After the belt.
Right.
But then, okay, so then I'm going to remind them of that parable or that saying, where the person was like stranded on the island, right? And like, they're like, God, come and save me. And God sends somebody in a boat and they don't get on the boat because they're like, no, God is coming to save me. And then somebody comes by in the helicopter and they're like, no, God's coming to save me. And then they end up dying on that island. And God's like, why you ain't sent? I sent you all these lifeboats. Why you didn't do? So, my friends, I'm a Christian. I pray for my son all the time. When he first started getting in trouble in preschool for laying hands on people, and it wasn't, and I should, let me qualify that because I don't want y'all thinking my kids would just beat people up. But he definitely has that hyperactive component.
Right.
So he was just, dancing and flailing his arms and like would hit people or like do cartwheels and like kick people. So he was doing things like that, not intending to hurt anybody, but it was happening. So nonetheless, I came home and when he was sleeping, I was rubbing him with oil, like, these hands will be used for good and not for bad. So I did all of those things. And so I believe in the Lord and I know it helped. At the same time, God helps those who help themselves. Right. So I had to use my resources and go and find the supports and the aids that the Lord has provided and put upon this earth for us to use. So let's do that.
Yeah.
And if they fail to do that, how will it affect their child?
Oh, gosh. So, again, I'll use my own personal example. What really so my husband and I had a lot of conversations about whether or not to put our son on medication because he was so young. We didn't know how it was going to impact his growth and development, and we just didn't really like the idea of him being on a daily medication so young. And so we struggled with that thing, but in the end, what swayed our decision towards medication was when it started to impact his self-esteem. Because he would come home and say to us, why do I keep getting in trouble? Am I a bad mommy? Oh. And so it's like, all right, now we're about to have a whole other problem with his mental health and his self-esteem and confidence. And I don't need him. He's already a little black boy in America.
Yes.
I don't need him.
So you don't need him thinking that he needs to be
problems.
caged somewhere.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. So I would say when it becomes to a point where it's starting to affect their mental health and well-being, it's time to do something.
Yes, parents got to stop being prideful.
Right. And I'm not 100% component of just medication. Like the research actually supports that medication and behavior therapy are the best combination, the most effective means of treating ADHD. We like to start with medication because it allows the child to be calm enough to receive the interventions that we're trying to teach them. Right.
Good point.
But the two need to work together because, like I told you before, it's about teaching them the structure and the organizational skills that they don't naturally have because of the delayed development of that part of their brain.
That was beautiful that you said that. Because obviously, you're going to have a lot of our church folk watching this, but it's the God gives us the ability to be realistic. Also, you understand what I'm saying? Spiritual and
if it ain't practical, it ain't spiritual. It's my old spiritual.
Be realistic and resourceful. You know what I'm saying? It's the whole be in the world, not of the world kind of.
I'm a Christian. I believe God blesses people with the ability to be scholarly and become doctors and give them the information
to help somebody.
Absolutely. In my regular therapy, if my clients tell me that they are Christian, and I will ask them if they are okay with me bringing Christian elements into our, intervention, into our therapy. And if they are okay with it, then we do.
Absolutely.
God is a part of everything that we do.
Hello now.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, I only pick therapists that are...
Hold on, Tiff, put the mic.
Go ahead, Tiff.
Sorry, if I can ask one additional question. So, just in closing, what are some key characteristics to look for? If your child is X, Y, Z, blah, blah, and it may not be all inclusive of all of these things, but I'm at a crossroad. I don't know what to do. I'm considering potentially taking my kid for an evaluation, but I'm also worried about the stigma. And my mama said I don't need to because we just need to put them on the altar and rub them down with some chicken grease. What are some characteristics that I need to consider as that parent who kind of is a little unsure.
Yeah.
But what would help me get clear on, okay, you know what, I really do need to do this for my child, and not for me, but for my kid.
So, the inattentive symptoms, you'd be looking for at least 6 of these things, right? So if your child lacks attention to detail.
Yeah.
So if you send them to look for something and you're like, go get the keys, they're right there on the counter, and they're like, I don't see it. And you walk and you put your hand right on it. You know, that's one of them. Short attention span, doesn't listen carefully to what you're saying, struggles to complete tasks. So may start a whole bunch of things, but never finishes any of them. Poor organization or losing things a lot. Avoiding activities that require sustained attention. So a lot of our kids that have ADHD struggle with writing because it requires so much effort and energy. And so that is another symptom. Being easily distracted. So, you know, when they're like, ooh, squirrel, you know, that kind of thing. And then forgetfulness. So that working memory component. And then the hyperactive symptoms have to do with that fidgetiness, difficulty sitting still. A kid that runs and climbs on everything, is always climbing and jumping off of stuff and just doesn't seem to really have a fear for, like, you know, the danger involved in things.
That's my daughter right now. That's just because she ain't bust her ass yet. When that happens, then maybe she might
life is the best teacher, right? Kids that are unable to do leisurely activities quietly. So if you just don't have the ability to play, like my son, bless him, I love him to
Blast
death.
music?
But no, like he's always making noises with his mouth. So even when he's playing his video game or something, it's like, another characteristic is when they seem like they're often on the go, or they seem like they're driven by a motor. They just go until the battery dies, and then they sleep. Talking is excessively, blurting out, difficulty waiting your turn, interrupting people, those kind of things. So those are essentially the symptoms that you'd be looking for. Now, if I just read that and you're an adult, and some of those things apply to you,
Right.
You might have ADHD. Right? Because
I told you I had it.
You said another one.
Told you I had it. Look at this camera. Say that again to all the adults.
I mean, it's true. 1 in 20 adults actually has some symptoms of ADHD.
Yeah, they just said,
but only 4% are actually diagnosed.
Do they change as you get older?
Well,
or are they the same symptoms?
Because they just said it's less obvious because obviously you're not jumping up and down off on furniture and stuff like that.
Word.
But symptoms
But
like
you may be
poor
risk
planning
behavior. I mean, you may do risk-seeking behavior.
Right. They say like a poor planner.
Yeah.
Like when you that's a symptom.
Procrastination.
Yes.
I told y'all I was ADHD. I told y'all.
Yeah, because that has to do with that task initiation. You can't get started on something, but that also can be a symptom of anxiety. So none of these symptoms,
anxiety.
None of these symptoms by themselves.
She's just trying to smoke out.
No, she definitely.
Go ahead.
Now that I think about it, she definitely got that shit.
Go ahead, Millicent. See?
She definitely got that shit. Tiff, you heard from the tax lady yet? She definitely got that shit.
Told y'all. Go ahead, Millicent.
But no, I'm just
The bio?
Like I said, only 4% of adults really get the diagnosis. And what I find a lot that happens a lot is when I'm giving a parent feedback about an evaluation that I did on their kid, and they're like, "But no, that was me. I did that when I was a kid," and I'm like. You might want to go talk to your doctor. Because that very same thing happened with my husband.
Right.
We were having the evaluation for my son, and he's sitting there, he's like, but I used to do that. And I was like, I'm trying to tell you. Yeah.
No, I definitely.
And he actually got diagnosed at that time too. And it's been helpful for him because he started on medication. He's like, oh my God, I could get work done now. Like, I wish I had known this when I was younger. It would have made my life easier.
Yeah.
But because he was
stuff.
intelligent, he was able to compensate. And I think that's
I
part of what you were talking about.
I took one of my son's pills one day, and I was like, it's a little better. I need to get my own diagnosis because, the procrastination one, I procrastinate to start on the task. It's a struggle for me to get through a simple paragraph in reading.
And you know what's another misconception, another myth? A lot of people will say to me, "Oh, but my child will sit there and play video games for hours."
That actually is a component.
Does not
to ADHD.
preclude them. That is not right. That is not an exception.
Yeah.
That does not mean you don't have ADHD. That actually is a symptom, right? That hyperfixation or hyper focus on something to where, again, it's about regulating. You're not regulating the fact that you've been doing this for 3 hours. You need to get up and go do some other stuff.
With another specialist, and
that's the marijuana.
A long time ago, when they talked about children with ADHD and they can watch TV or play, they would say TV or video games for hours. Now I'm going to jack up this specialist words, and maybe you can fill in the blank. But years ago, a specialist said in the forum that I was in, they said, well, it has something to do with because video games and TV have to deal with ever-changing images.
I was about to say, it's constantly changing. So it's not prolonged attention on a piece of paper that's not moving.
It's different components, different
there's
things.
Lights flashing. There's all kind of things to stimulate their brain and keep them attentive to that.
Different things happening. So it's basically working hand in hand with their
It's stimulating them.
That makes sense,
right? Because the problem is understimulation. That's why we give them stimulant medications.
Yeah.
They're understimulated, so they're doing all of this extra stuff to feed them to try to get stimulated. If you give them a stimulant medication, they don't have to do all that.
Now, if they were sitting there staring at a still image for 8 hours, now that might be a different. Like
a jigsaw puzzle,
right? Yeah. Now that might be a different story. But like you said,
that's a whole different diagnosis if they're doing that.
A whole different one.
So before we close out, let me ask you this, because you had a very extensive bio, and we brought you on because we were just like, we really want to attack some of the truths and the myths regarding ADHD in the Black community, but you have an extensive bio in the entire field. Is there anything that you say, listen, just under your professional umbrella that may be included in today's topic or maybe laterally included? You say, look, I just want to make sure you don't understand anything else. Take this away from me today while you have the microphone. This is for you to spread information.
I really want to give a plug just for mental health in general.
Amen.
Because in the Black community, we shy away from that. We're all about keeping house business in the house. And I'm strong. I'm a strong Black woman. I don't have to talk to people about my feelings. I got it. I got this. We do all of that. And on the inside, we are breaking down. We end up with hypertension, high blood pressure. We end up having heart attacks. We end up having diabetes and all these things because we don't realize that our mental health actually has an impact or plays a role in our physical health. Right? So if you don't get your mind right, the rest of your body is going to fall apart too.
Amen.
Right? So stop being so afraid to go and talk to somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. Having a non-judgmental person to just listen to all your stuff, I think that we all could engage in some of that. And even if you don't feel like anything's wrong, you should probably go see somebody too. It's just good practice. You go to the doctor for a checkup when there's not anything specifically wrong. So why can't we do the same thing with our brains? Right?
Ooh, girl. Preaching to the choir. We say that all the time on our show because we are big on mental health, especially in our community. Absolutely. So the fact that you just dropped that gem, and she is licensed, y'all. She's a doctor. About to be a doctor.
About to be.
A couple more years.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you touched on that.
Amen.
We need it.
Thank y'all. But I just appreciate y'all inviting me here and allowing me this opportunity to talk about this. This is a topic that is very personal for me, with the men in my life and my family, and then just in the work that I do in general with students, because I think a lot of the times with our kids, when they do get into that cycle of inappropriate behavior or getting in trouble and all that kind of stuff, then we're just feeding the school to prison pipeline. And we're just adding more and more of our young Black men to the incarceral system, right? So let's do what we can on the early end, and that's part of my research and what I'm interested in is how can we bring mental health into the school where the kids are, meet their needs at an early age, and stop that cycle.
What I appreciate most about your messages here today is it not only focuses on the children, but someone like you said, that may be watching this, that the adults that may not have known. like you said, they say, oh, well, I act like that since I was a kid. But they don't realize that never
Right.
really left them.
Right.
You know
Because we
what I'm
all were
saying?
little people that grew up to be adults that
To
suffer
be
from the
adults
same
with the
issues that you
same-
had when you were a little
with the
child.
same issues that you never tackled.
But you ignored
You
it.
understand what I'm
Right.
saying? So
And maybe you just figured out a way to live with it.
There you
But
go.
imagine
Yeah,
how much
yeah.
better your
There you
life
go.
could be without it.
Or find something to
Absolutely.
drain it out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Amen. Thank you. God
Well, we
bless you,
thank
Vanessa.
you.
God bless
We
you.
thank you so much for coming by and dropping all these gems and knowledge. We hope that somebody took something from this. If somebody wants more information to contact you or resources and websites, where can they go to?
Yes. So if you want to reach me directly, I work with the Coralie Institute. So you can reach us on our website, coralieinstitute.org. So Coralieinstitute.org. You can also reach us on our socials, Coralie Institute, Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome.
That's what's up. And for more of our social media outlets and content and merch, visit us at thetruthnochaser.com.
Until next time, keep walking in your truth, Black people.
Yes.